Okay, Rabbi Sai, let's get going. A lot of ground to cover today. We're on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis at the Gemara. The topic of this new parak, Shavuos HaPikadon, is as the name implies. The Torah says that if a person is a defendant on a claim, Reuven comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, you owe me $100. Shimon says, I swear I owe you nothing. If then Shimon confesses, certainly if Shimon confesses afterwards and says, I was wrong, then the Torah says he has to bring a korban called a korban shvuah. But it's different from the korban shvuah that we've seen up until now. This is a korban where the Torah only holds you liable if you knew that you were lying. And you confess. It's similar to Shavuos HaEdus in that respect. From the last parak, you confess, and the Torah says you have to pay what you owe, plus you have to add, plus you bring a korban. So we're focusing on, the focus primarily is on the issue of the korban. Rav Acha bar Huna v'Rav Shmuel b'rei de Rabba bar Bar Chana v'Rav Yitzchak b'rei de Rav Yehuda tanu Shavuos bei Rabba. This phrase we've seen before, where there is a group of rabbis who are studying the laws of making Shavuos in the Beis Medrash of Rabba. Paga Behu Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana meets up with them and presents them challenges. So Omer Lahu, Hazid b'Shvuos HaPikadon v'Hisrubo Mahu. Kevin dechidushu de b'chol haTorah lo ashkechan mezid demaisi korban v'hasi maisi korban lo shanu asrube v'lo shanu lo asrube. Odilma, okay, so I'm going to hold it there. The question that he's asking them is as follows. What if, when Shimon is challenged that he owes $100, and he says, I'm willing to swear that I don't owe the $100, two witnesses come along and say, Shimon, now we know that you owe the $100. If you swear, do you realize that you're going to be punished for making a false oath? Now, in that situation, the question is, what if Shimon swears nonetheless and then confesses and comes clean? And does he bring a korban in that situation because he received forewarning? And the question, there are three different sides to this question. Side number one is that on the one hand, you could argue that this is a novelty in the sense that it's very unusual for a person to bring a korban for deliberately doing an act of malice by lying. And for witnesses to forewarn him, therefore, should not make a difference. And thus, if they forewarn him, it will make no difference. If he swears falsely, he will still have to bring a korban afterwards. O Dilma, second side of the question is, Hani mili heicha de lo asrube, aval heicha de asrube milka laki korban lo maisi. Maybe because he was forewarned, where witnesses come and say, we know that you're lying. We know that you owe Reuven $100. Like it's like not even a question. So why are you doing this? Maybe in that situation, since he's so flagrantly lying, then a korban is not usable for him, because a korban has to involve some level of, lack of criminality, or like, let's say, lessened criminality. But here the level of criminality is so high, where he's warned in advance, we know that you're lying. So maybe their korban is not usable for him. O Dilma, ha v'ha avdina. Or the third side of it is that perhaps maybe in a situation where he's given hasra, he has to give both, gets both malchus and a korban. So let me review the three sides. Okay, three sides of the question are, we know that when a person flagrantly lies under oath and then comes clean, he has to bring a korban shvuah for having sworn that he doesn't owe money when he really does. The question, that's a Torah law. The question that Rav Kahana asks is, perhaps that halacha is only true if he did not receive hasra'ah from witnesses in advance. But perhaps if he received hasra'ah from witnesses in advance and they tell him, we know you're lying, don't do this, and he still flagrantly does it, it rises to an even higher level of criminality, and therefore a korban is not good enough, and therefore he's only going to get malchus. That's one side. Side number two is maybe, or that's side number two. Side number one is maybe it makes no difference. Maybe in all cases where a person flagrantly lies. Since the whole concept is a chiddush to begin with, it makes no difference whether he was forewarned by witnesses or not. If he flagrantly lied and he comes clean after having taken a false oath, he has to bring a shvuah. Side number 2 is, no, that's only when he didn't receive hasra from Eidim, but if he received hasra from Eidim, he would get malchus. Side number 3 is, maybe when he received hasra from Eidim, he would get both malchus for doing something that's so criminal, plus bring a carbon. Those are the 3 sides of the question. Is that clear now? Okay. So, Amar Lei Tanina. So, the response that they responded to Rav Kahana was as follows. We have a brisa that says, Chamura himena shvuas hapikadon shechayoven al zdona makos vel shegagasa asham bekesef shkolim. The brisa says that the reason why this parak comes right after the parak of shvuas ha'edus is because in one level, shvuas hapikadon, what we're talking about now, is more stringent than shvuas ha'edus. For shvuas hapikadon, you're going to get malchus for some level of intent, of what we call mazid, and only for shogeg do you bring a carbon. Now, shogeg can't mean the shogeg that we know that you didn't know that you were lying, because the mission explicitly states that for shogeg on a shvuas hapikadon you don't bring a carbon. If you don't know that you're lying because you forgot that you owe the money and you swear falsely, you're not liable. You're only liable when you know you're lying. So we must mean that a person knows that he's lying, but he doesn't. There's some aspect of shogeg involved, either because he wasn't forewarned or because he doesn't know what the penalty is for falsely lying. But the bottom line is, the midikamer le alzdona makos michlal da asrube kamer makos in carbon lo. The fact is, look at the brisa. It says that if he does it flagrantly, he gets malchus. That must be because they warned him, because you never get malchus without hasra. Umay chumra denichale leinish demaisi carbon v'lo lilki. So why does that define shvuas hapikadon as more chamor, as more stringent than shvuas ha'edus? Because for shvuas ha'edus, you always bring a carbon. But for shvuas hapikadon, if it's done so flagrantly, with hasra in advance, you get malchus, because people would always prefer to bring a carbon than to get malchus. So doesn't that answer your question, Rav Kahana? You get malchus and you don't bring a carbon. So that was side number 2 that you had presented as a possibility. So Amar Lahu Rava Bar Isi, Mantana Zedon Shavuos HaPikadon Lonita and La Kapara, Reb Shimon, Avol Rabbanan Karbanomi Maisi. So Rava Bar Isi says, wait a minute, a couple of blot ago in the last parak, we had presented a machlokas between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim. And Rabbi Shimon had argued that when a person flagrantly takes the Shavuos HaPikadon, even without getting hasra, he does not have the opportunity to bring a carbon. So this brisa might go all according to Rabbi Shimon. But according to the Chachamim who say that you do bring a carbon even when you flagrantly lie on a shvuas hapikadon, maybe you would bring a carbon here plus get malchus. Maybe that's what the brisa means. Maybe you have to bring both. So granted, the brisa is talking about getting malchus because the Edom gave you hasra, but maybe you also have to bring a carbon in that case. So you don't really have an answer to the question fully. So Amar L'Ruhu Rav Kahana Bar Mina Dehahi Da'ana Tanina La V'Hachi Tanina La Echad Zedana Ve'echad Shegagasa Asham B'Kesef Shkolim U'May Chumra Di'ilu Hasam Chatas Bas Danka V'Hacha Asham B'Kesef Shkolim. So Rav Kahana, who's listening to this back and forth among these sages who are trying to prove one way or the other, says to them, listen, fellas, if you're trying to prove it from that brisa, I must tell you that I have in my possession a totally different version of that very same brisa. My version of the brisa is that while it's true that Shvuas HaPikadon is more chamor than Shvuas HaEdus, but my version of the brisa says that for Shvuas HaPikadon, you always bring a carbon both for Mazid and for Shogeg. And there is no malchus for Shvuas HaPikadon. Why then is Shvuas HaPikadon more chamor than Shvuas HaEdus when both of them involve bringing a carbon? So the brisa explains. So Rav Khan explains, because for Shvuas HaPikadon, the carbon that you bring is more expensive. It's a carbon asham, which costs 2 shekels of silver. A carbon that you bring for a Shvuas HaEdus is a carbon olav yored. It's a very insignificant, potentially, very insignificant value of carbon. And that's why it's more chomer. So basically, Rav Kahana is telling them, you're trying to bring a brisa to prove that a person gets malchus when he got hasra for Shvuas HaPikadon. He says, I got a totally different girsa of that brisa, so forget about it. So v'ligmar mina. So the Gemara says, okay, but according to your version, Rav Kahana, there's never malchus, so doesn't that answer your question? So he said, no, because Dilma de lo Asrube. Because maybe that brisa is talking about where their Edom did not come forward and give hasra. And maybe that's the reason why there's only a carbon. But maybe in a case where the Edom gave hasra before the Shvuas HaPikadon, a person would get malchus. Now, I'm sensing, because of the palpable silence in this room, that I've lost my audience.
I'm still catching up.
Okay.
Figure it out.
Yeah. I'm sensing that I've lost my audience. Let me just make sure that you're following. The question of the day is, although the Torah says, now listen, please listen carefully because I don't want your time to be wasted. Although the Torah says that when you flagrantly lie and deny owing money, that's what we call a Shvuas HaPikadon, that you bring a carbon as an atonement for that. Rav Kahana challenges that and he says, perhaps that's only true when you were not forewarned by witnesses. But if witnesses came forward and forewarned you, we know that you're lying. Why are you doing this? Don't you realize that you're not allowed to take a false shvuah, and if you do, you're going to be punished? Maybe in that situation, if the guy swears falsely, he doesn't bring a carbon as an atonement. It's not, he's too much of a criminal in that case, and therefore he gets malchus, or maybe malchus and a carbon. That's where we're holding. Okay? Lashon Acher, another version of this discussion back and forth. Tashma, ein chayavin al shegigasa, ma hein chayavin al zidona, asham bekesef shkalim. This brisa says that if a person swears falsely, bishoge, because he doesn't remember that he owes the money when he took the oath, he doesn't bring a carbon at all. But he brings a carbon, asham, when he flagrantly lies. So, my lav bida asrube. So, isn't that even true when they gave him hasra? And therefore, this brisa would imply that you don't get malchus even when there are edim who gave you hasra? No, hachanami delo asrube. Maybe not. Maybe the brisa is only talking about where there was no hasra. Tashma, let's look at another brisa. Lo, im amarta benazir tami shekain loke, tomer b'shvuas hapikadon she'eno loke. This brisa is a fragment that we're being parachuted into the middle of a discussion. Rashi says, I'm not familiar with this brisa, so you guys are on your own. It's essentially what Rashi says. And basically what the brisa is doing is that it creates a contrast between when a person is a nazir and flagrantly contaminates himself with tumah, versus a person who flagrantly lies by taking a false shvuas hapikadon. And it says that by a nazir, if he flagrantly contaminates himself, he gets malchus. But for a shvuas hapikadon that is done flagrantly, you don't get malchus. So mitika amar loike michlal da asrube kamar tomer b'shvuas hapikadon she'eno loka aval carbon maisi. So the Gemara says, we'll prove it from this brisa. This brisa is talking about where witnesses present forewarning the criminal, because that's the only time you can get malchus if you're a nazir who's going to contaminate. You can only get malchus if you were forewarned that you can't do this, if you got hasra. So if the contrast is being made that a nazir with hasra gets malchus, but a flagrant liar on a shvuas hapikadon who's forewarned doesn't get malchus, doesn't that prove our point that he only brings a carbon even with hasra? So the Gemara says no. My eno loke de eno niftar b'malchus. So the Gemara says maybe not. Maybe the translation of the brisa is that malchus alone is insufficient. That maybe a person who takes a false shvuas hapikadon after getting hasra has to bring both a carbon and get malchus. But wait a minute, what would that mean? Michlal denazir tami niftar b'malchus or carbon ksivbe. What would that imply, according to your interpretation? That a nazir only gets malchus and doesn't have to bring a carbon? But we know that the Torah says explicitly that when a nazir becomes tameh, he has to restart his nazirus, but he has to bring karbanos first. So that can't be the interpretation of the brisa, because it says that a nazir, if you're saying that a nazir only gets malchus, whereas a shvuas hapikadon liar gets malchus and a carbon, what do you mean that a nazir only gets malchus without a carbon? We know that he has to bring a carbon. So the Gemara says, Hasam demaisi carbon ki heicha detechel alei naziris betahara. So the Gemara says, no. The reason why a nazir who contaminates himself has to bring karbanos is not to atone for his crime, but rather it's a prerequisite to start the new naziris. Mm-hmm. So that's not considered to be an atoning protocol. It's just a prerequisite. So therefore, that's why it's contrasted. So that could be one way of learning the brisa. Now, we still are up in the air. We haven't answered Rav Kahana's question yet. We're basically throwing around brises to try and prove it one way or the other. And the Gemara has basically said we don't have resolution. Amrua Rabbanan Kamei de Rabba. And when the rabbis presented Rav Kahana's question to their Rosh Yeshiva Rabbah, he basically said, Amar lahu michlal dechilo asru bei ve'ika edem michayev question mark, kfiras devarim ba'almahu exclamation point. Rabbah's point was, I'm surprised at you that you accepted the basic premise of Rav Kahana, that if a person is confronted by witnesses, that there's an assumption that if they did not give him hasra'ah, even though the witnesses know that he owes money, that if they didn't give him hasra'ah, then he would have to bring a carbon after falsely swearing. See, Rabbi works with the following issue. You see, Rabbi looks at it conceptually. He says, why does a person have to bring a carbon after taking a false shvuas apikadon? Because he swore in such a way that if his swear would have been the final statement, then he would have gotten away without having to pay. And therefore, when he confesses his sin, we allow him to do penance by bringing a carbon. But let's say my oath would not have succeeded in me getting away without paying, based on the fact that even without my taking an oath, I know that there are witnesses who are going to come and incriminate me anyway. So Rabbi says, in that case, you don't bring a carbon for swearing falsely. You only bring a carbon for swearing falsely where the swearing falsely would have let you get away without paying. But in the presence of witnesses, all you're doing is denying something which you know you're going to have to pay in based in anyway. You just choose to deny it verbally. But your words are totally ineffective in the face of Edom. So why would there ever be a carbon? Rabbi's point is, the whole premise of the question is mistaken. If there are witnesses that Shimon owes Reuven $100, then there'll never be a carbon shvua, regardless of whether there was hasra or not. That's Rabbi's shita. We're going to challenge Rabbi's shita shortly, but that's his shita. So Alma Kesova Rabba Hakofer b'mamon sheishal avedim pater. So we see that's what Rabba holds, that if you swear falsely in the face of Edom, so then you're pater from a carbon shvua. So Amar le Rav Chanina le Rabba Tanya de Misayelach. So Rav Chanina thinks he's going to help Rabba by showing him a brisa that supports him. What's the brisa? It says v'chichesh ba. In the Torah, talking about denial of owing money, it says the person shall deny. Prat lamod le'echad min ha'achin o le'echad min ha'shutfin. So those words, deny, mean that we're excluding someone who admits to one brother and denies the other brother, or admits to one partner and denies the other partner. What that means, we'll define in just a moment. V'nishba al shaker, or a person who swears falsely, prat lelova bishtar v'lelova be'edim. This excludes someone who borrowed money with a shtar or borrowed money with witnesses. Now that last line seems to imply that when I borrowed money and there are witnesses that know that I owe the money, then there's no carbon shvua. Doesn't that prove your point, Rabba? So Rabba said to him, with all due respect, Amar lei imi shum halo tesayan, ba'omer livisi velo livisi be'edim, livisi velo livisi b'shtar. Rabba says that I could reinterpret that brisa. The brisa there is not talking about a person who completely swears falsely and says, I don't owe you money. It's talking about a person who says, I owe you money, but the loan was made orally and not with ishtar and not with witnesses, but I owe you the money nonetheless. Why is he saying that? Maybe he doesn't want there to be a lien on his property. There could be any number of reasons why he says it. But the point is that maybe that's the reason why there's no korban shvuah, because you're not denying any monetary claim. You're admitting the claim, but you're just saying that I swear that it was done without a shtar. Okay, so that's the reason why the brisa says you're part of a korban shvuah. It could be that you still be chayav a korban shvuah according to that brisa if you deny owing the money when there are witnesses. So you have no raya from there. But mimai, and I'll prove it to you that the way I'm interpreting the brisa is more correct, because midiketani v'chichesh ba prat lamod le'echad min ha'achen le'echad min ha'shutfin. Because the first part of the brisa had said that we exclude when the Torah says that you have to deny the claim. This excludes a person who admits to one brother or to one partner and denies the other brother or the other partner. Now, hay le'echad min ha'achen heichidami. So what's the case over there? He says it can't mean that two brothers come to Shimon. Reuven and Levi come to Shimon and they say, we each one of us lent you $50. And Shimon says, I am moda that I owe Reuven $50, but I deny owing Levi $50. That can't be the pshat, because that's also v'chicheshba. That's included in the denial of a claim. You're de facto denying a claim, so the Torah can't be excluding that. So elalav da amri lei mitharvinan yasvas va'amr lahu lo michad minaychu yasvi dahavi le kfiras devarim ba'alma. He says it must be that when the Torah excludes someone who doesn't deny a claim, it's excluding someone who admits that he owes $100. When Reuven and Levi confront him, they say, collectively you owe us $100. Shimon says, I agree that I owe $100, and I swear to that, but I only owe the $100 to Reuven. I owe Levi nothing. That's what he's claiming. Umi dereisha kfiras devarim seifa nami kfiras devarim. And that must be the definition of the way you explain the first part of the brisa. So therefore, the second part of the brisa is explained in that very same way. We're not talking about someone who's denying owing money. He clearly acknowledges that he owes money, but he denies the circumstances behind the owing of the money, either denying that it's owed to two people versus one person, or denying that the loan was made in a shtar versus made orally. Okay, so again, we have no proof from there to support Rabbi's claim that when a loan is made with witnesses, there's never a korban shvuas apikada. Tashma, eino chayev al shigagasa, umahu chayev al zedona asham bekesef shkalim. So again, the Brisa had said that a person will never be chayev on falsely swearing b'shogeg. He's only chayev on falsely swearing b'mezid. So my lav zedon edim. Doesn't that imply even when there are edim and I flagrantly lie in the face of the witnesses? And doesn't that show, not like Rabbi said, that there is a korban shavua even when there are edim? Los don atzmo. No, the brisa is not necessarily talking about where there are edim. Maybe it's just saying that a person flagrantly lies because he knows internally that he owes the money. Okay, next brisa. Tashma, hayushtei kitei edim kafra harishona v'achar kach kafra hashniya shteyan chayavos mipnei sheyechola edus liiskayim b'shteyan. This brisa goes back to the previous parak. This we saw in Daf Lamed Aleph. Let's say there are two groups of witnesses who can testify on someone's behalf in court. Reuven calls both of them to testify so that he can extract the money owed to him by Shimon. And both of them refuse to testify, and both of them swear. The first group swears first, and the second group swears second. The halacha is that if it's discovered that they were both lying, each set of witnesses has to bring their own korban shvua. So the Gemara now says, Bishlam ashniya tischayev da hakapara da hakafra lakas rishona. Ela rishona amai michayeva hakaima shniya. The question is like this. I can certainly understand why the second set of witnesses would have to bring a korban shvua, because by the time we get to them, we've exhausted all other witnesses. If this second group doesn't speak up, then the court's going to throw out the case. and there will be a miscarriage of justice. And certainly, therefore, I can understand why they have to bring a carbon when they're lying. But why should the first set of witnesses have to bring a carbon when they lie? Why can't they say to themselves, what do you need us for? You have another set of witnesses that will be able to testify for you. So even though we're swearing falsely, we're not the ones causing the miscarriage because there are other witnesses. The Gemara's question is basically like this. The Gemara is saying is that you see that in the presence of witnesses, since I'm not cheating anyone out of money because I'm going to have to pay it anyway, or that justice will be served anyway, I shouldn't have to bring a carbon. That's the question that the Gemara asks. So Amar Ravina, Hacha b'maya skinan kigon shahaisa shniya b'shas kfiras harishona kroven bin ishosein gosasos. Mahu detema of gosas in lamisa kama hashmalon. So the Gemara says, you know why? You're right. If the first witnesses lie, knowing that there are perfectly kosher witnesses who are able to create justice in court, then they're not going to be chayev for a korban shvuah. Why are they chayev? Because the Brisa there is talking about a case that while they were testifying, the second set of witnesses were married to the sister of the claimant or of the defendant, of one of the litigants, and therefore their testimony is invalid. So at the time when the first witnesses are swearing falsely, their testimony is the pivotal testimony, and therefore if they end up lying, they have to bring a korban shvuah. So hashta mihas chayeninu v'lo shchivi, and the chiddush is that even though the sisters of the litigants are deathly ill and they're imminently going to die, the first witnesses cannot rationalize to themselves, well, if we swear falsely, there'll still be no miscarriage of justice because the second witnesses will be able to testify as soon as their wives drop dead. No, you can't. That's not a good argument since at the moment that we're lying, they're puzzled for edus because they're married to the sisters, so therefore they're swearing falsely at a pivotal moment and their testimony is pivotal, and therefore they're chayav a korban shvuah. So Tashma. Let's look at another brisa. Anyway, the point of this whole exercise is to explain that it could taka be that when there are witnesses, in other words, in defense of Rabbi, when there are witnesses that can prove that I owe the money, my swearing falsely will not make me chayav a korban shvuah because my false oath is not creating a miscarriage of justice. Justice will still be served despite the fact that I'm swearing falsely because the witnesses will prove that I owe the money. Tashma.
And you would be totally off the hook even though you've done something asur.
You're not off the hook in Shemayim,
Right,
but you're off the hook but you don't have to bring a carbon. Tashma.
Is a good thing for you.
Right.
Yeah,
Tashma.
We're still saying doesn't get Malkus at this point?
You can't get Malkus. There was no Hasra here. We're not talking about... The Malkus issue is not the relevant issue that Rabbi is addressing. That was the Rav Kahana's question. Rabbi is saying, let's go to a more basic premise. In the presence of witnesses, even without Hasra, you can't bring a carbon. Okay, Tashma. Bala bayis sheta antainas ganav b'fikadon v'nishba v'hoida ubo edim. Now here's a special case of shvuas hapikadon, where not only does the person claim I don't owe you money, but he claims you gave me $100 for safekeeping, but I'm sorry that it was stolen. Here the Torah applies special rules to this person who denies it. Not only will he have to bring a korban, but he'll also be treated as a ganav himself, and he has to pay kefil. So, but it depends. It depends. Im ad shelo bo edim hoda mishalim keren v'chomesh v'asha. If he confesses on his own, before the witnesses come and say that he has it, so then he doesn't have to pay double. He pays the principal plus 25% penalty for lying, plus he brings a korban asha. But
is he lying about his theft? Is he lying that the money was stolen?
Yeah, he has it.
Oh,
he has it.
He made up a story.
He made up a story. Im mishabo edim hoda mishalem tashlumi kefil va'asham. But if the witnesses came first, testified that he has it, that it wasn't stolen, and then he confesses, yeah, I was lying. So then the halacha is that he has to pay kefil, still brings a carbon asham, unlike what our Mishnah had said, still brings a carbon asham, but has to pay kefil as well. Now, so the Gemara says, don't you see from here, not like Rabbi, because Rabbi said that whenever there are witnesses, there's no carbon shvua. And here there are witnesses, and there's still nonetheless a carbon shvua. So the Gemara says, Hachanami kida Ravina. It could be that, like Ravina had said in the previous case, the moment the guy took a shvua, the witnesses were married to the sisters of the claimant. Right? And that's the reason why his false oath was pivotal at that moment. And that's the reason why he has to bring a carbon shvua. So again, we can wiggle out of it, and it's not a contradiction of Rabbah. Amar le Ravina le Ravashi Tashma. Chamura mimena shvuas hapikadon shechayaven al zdano makos al shegagasa asham bekesef shkolin. So what did we see this brisa? The brisa, like we quoted before, had said that shvuas hapikadon is more chamur, is more stringent than shvuas ha'edus, because for shvuas hapikadon you get malchus. Now, midika amar loika mechlal diika edom ukama shel shigagasa asham bekesef shkolim. So we see that there are witnesses. You can't get malchus unless there are witnesses who forewarned you. So clearly there are witnesses involved that you're lying. Hey, buddy, you're lying. And yet we still say that you bring a korban shvuah in this brisa. So doesn't that disprove Rabbah? No. Amar lehu Rav Mordechai bar mina de'ahi deha amar lehu Rav Kahana ana tanina la v'achi tanina la echad zedon v'echad shigagasa asham b'kesev shkolim. No, that's the brisa where Rav Kahana said he had a totally different version of that brisa. And according to Rav Kahana's version, you always bring a korban for shvuas hapikadon, regardless of whether it was zadon or mezid. But in Rav Kahana's version, we don't know whether there are witnesses in that case or not. The brisa doesn't talk about witnesses. Okay, so therefore you can't use that brisa to disprove Rabbah. Tashma, but let's look at one more brisa. Lo yim amarta b'nazir tamei shekein loke torma b'shvuas hapikadon she'eino loke. Remember, we saw this on the last page. It said that there's a contrast between a nazir who flagrantly contaminates himself and a person who flagrantly lies in Beis Din on a shvuas hapikadon. The difference is that the nazir only brings a korban, and the person with the shvuas hapikadon, the nazir only gets malchus rather, and the person with the shvuas hapikadon does not get malchus. Now, heichidami idoleke edem amai loike. Why should a person who's a nazir who contaminates himself get malchus if there are no witnesses? So elapshita diika edem uketani tomer b'shvuas hapikadon she'ino loka milku hudoloki evol carbon maisi. And if that's the case, then the corresponding case of the shvuas hapikadon person is where there are also witnesses, and it says he doesn't get malchus, but what does he have to do? He has to bring a korban. So what does that indicate? That even in the presence of Eidim, a person who swears falsely has to bring a shvuas hapikadon. Tiyufta de Rabba, tiyufta. Is this a refutation of Rabba? Yes, indeedy it is. And therefore, in the final analysis, Rabba's shita is rejected, and that, therefore, even when a person flagrantly lies in the face of Eidim, he will still be liable to bring a korban shvuah. What we haven't answered is Rav Kahana's question of what happens if he got hasra'ah from those self-same Eidim. That we haven't answered, but at least we've been able to reject Rabbah and show that if there are witnesses, you'll still potentially have to take a shvuas hapikadon. Now, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, hakofer b'mamon sheyesh alav Eidim chayav, but b'shtar poter. Rabbi Yochanan alters Rabbah's shita. He says, okay, so we've proven that even though where there are witnesses, you'll still potentially have to take a korban shvuah, but if a loan was made with a shtar, Reuven lent Shimon money, $100, and now Reuven holds the promissory note. If Shimon flagrantly lies in a shvuah, he will not have to bring a korban shvuah because there's a shtar present. And the question is why? Why does that make a difference? So Amar Rav Papa, my time into Rabbi Yochanan, what's his reason? Eidem avidi demaisi shtar hamonach. So the initial thinking is because there's a difference between witnesses and a shtar. Witnesses, a person could rationalize, they could always die. So I could get away with this lie. And that's why the Torah says, you're a bad boy. And if you want to atone for trying to get away from paying money, you have to bring a carbon. But a shtar doesn't die. A shtar is permanent. And therefore, when a person lies, he knows he can't get away with it because the guy's got a shtar. So it doesn't rise to that level of criminality, and therefore you won't bring a carbon. So the Gemara says, Amarle Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua Rav Papa Shtaranami Avid Demirkas. What kind of answer is that? Maybe a guy's holding up a glimmer of hope because maybe the creditor will lose the shtar. Just like witnesses can die, a shtar can be lost. So that's not a good distinction. So Ela Amar Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua Hainu Taima de Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Dahav Shtar Shibud Karkos V'Mivin Carbon Al Kfira Shibud Karkos. This is a big chiddush. The chiddush is that just like we know that if a claim is made against me that I owe real estate, I never take an oath. You never take an oath. This is based on psukim. You never take an oath on denying owing real estate. Similarly, since a shtar usually carries a lien of real estate on it, if I deny owing money where there's a shtar, I'm denying a claim on real estate, and therefore, if I swear falsely, I don't have to bring a korban shvuah. Just like I don't have to take a shvuah on karka, I similarly, if I do take a shvuah and I swear falsely on when the claim is that I have your land, I don't bring a korban shvuah for that.
It's a secured loan.
It's a secured loan, but it seems like he's creating this corollary that you don't necessarily have to make. Anyway, Itmar, Mashbia Ede Karka, Pligi ba Reb Yochanan v'Reb Elazar, Chad Amar Chayev v'Chad Amar Pater. Now, here's a similar corollary as well. What were to happen if Ruvain has a claim that Shimon owes him real estate, and Ruvain knows that there are witnesses who can corroborate his claim, and he schleps them to court, and they swear falsely under oath that they know no testimony on behalf of Ruvain. So that's last parak. They take a false shvuah se'edus. But the stakes are the owing of real estate. So this is a machlokus, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. One says that if they are proven to be liars, they have to bring a korban shvuah se'edus, and the other one says they do not. So tistayim de Rabbi Yochanan damer pater midam Rabbi Yochanan a kafar b'mammon sheishel of edom chayev but shtar pater uchder Rav Huna bereder Rav Yoshua tistayim. So it would seem very clear to be consistent that Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that they're pater, because just like over here he said that when a person swears on a shtar falsely on a loan with a shtar, he's pater because you don't bring a korban for denial of real estate claims. So too, witnesses who swear falsely that they don't know testimony on a real estate claim, also because it's on a real estate claim, will not have to bring a korban shvuah. Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Avohu, lema Rabbi Yochanan v'Rabbi Elazar beplukta to Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbanan kamiflagi. Now this machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, who are Amoraim, the suggestion is that their machlokes is the very same machlokes of two Tanoim of the Mishnaic period, Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. What's the Ditnan? So we have a brisa that states as follows: Hagozel sadeh mechavero v'shatfa nahar chayv lahamid lo sadeh divrei Rabbi Eliezer and v'chachamim omrim omer lo hareshel chalafanecha. The machlokas is as follows: Shimon steals real estate from Ruvain by squatting on it, and while he's in possession of the real estate, a flash flood comes and wipes out the entire field. Now this is a situation where the field has clearly depreciated in the thief's possession. The question is, what does the thief owe when he is discovered? So Rabbi Eliezer says, if the value of the field is less now than when it was when he stole it, he has to make up the difference. But the Chachamim say no. He could say to the Ganav, could say to the fellow, Hareshel Chalafanecha. Real estate is different from other kinds of theft. For example, if I steal your car, everyone agrees that if I bash up the car, I can't just drive a jalopy back and park it on your lot and say I've returned your car. Everyone agrees that you have to make up for the depreciation. But here there's a machlokas on real estate. And the question is, what is the basis of the machlokas? The Omrinan b'maika mithilgi. Rabbi Eliezer Darish Ribuye umiute v'Rabbanan darshi klali uprati. I'm going to run through the Gemara quickly. Rabbi Eliezer darsh ribuye umiute v'chichesh ba'amiso riba b'fikadon o b'sasumes yad miyet o mikol asher yishavah chaza v'riba ribu miyet v'riba akol. My riba kol mili u my miyet shtaros. V'Rabbanan darshi klali uprati v'chichesh ba'amiso klal b'fikadon o b'sasumes yad o b'gazel prat o mikol asher yishavah lav chaza v'kol klal upratu klal Iatadan ela ke'ein haprat. Ma haprat mifurash davar hamitaltel v'gufo mamon. Av kol davar hamitaltel v'gufo mamon. Yatsu karkos she'en mitaltel. Yatsu avadim shukshel karkos. Yatsu shtarosh afal pisha mitaltelin ein gufan mamon. Okay, now let me just unpack this. I'll do it very quickly. We saw this idea before that there are two schools of hermeneutics, two different ways, two methodologies of deriving halacha. One is the riboy miyot riboy method. One is the klalu pratu klal method. Two different schools of methodology. The riboy miyot, the riboy, and the klalu pratu klal both look at a pasuk that is structured with a general clause, a specific clause, and a general clause capping it. And they say we have two different methodologies at play. The school of Rabbi Eliezer is the riboy miyot and riboy school, which says that the two general clause tell you that this halacha being addressed in this pasuk is inclusive of everything, of all cases, and there's only the specific clause in the middle is only coming to exclude one special case from the general rule. The klalu pratu klal school says no. The specific clause actually defines the parameters of the general halacha. And therefore, the specific clause is not just exclusionary of one case, but exclusionary of multiple cases that are analogous to that specific clause. So in the case as follows, in the case over here, where the pasuk is talking about denying a claim, where the Torah talks about how a ganef who denies owing money has to pay everything that he stole, so Rabbi Eliezer says the general clause is that any time you deny owing someone something that you stole, you have to make completely good on that claim. The only exception, and that, by the way, that includes everything. That includes everything. And the only thing that is excluded, let me just see, the only thing that's excluded is if a person claims that he doesn't owe a promissory note to someone. There, because the object itself does not have an intrinsic value, he can't be called to task to restore the original thing that he stole. But everything else, including karka, if he stole it and it depreciated, he's got to make good on the depreciation. But the Chachamim use the klalu pratu klal system, and the prat, the specific clause, includes everything that has to be chattel. It has to be non-real. It has to be not real estate. It has to have intrinsic value and not a shtar. So therefore, excluded from that is in cases of real estate and slaves. Real estate and slaves, if you deny that claim, and it turns out that you're a ganef, you do not have to make full restitution on depreciation. You can just say, Harei shel chalafanecha, you can say, here it is before you. Now, what was the purpose of this exercise? So the Gemara now says, Man de mechayev ke Rebbe Eliezer, man de poter ke Rabbanan. The same machlokas between Rebbe Elazar and Rebbe Yochanan. And when you deny when you swear falsely that you don't know testimony on real estate, will be the same machlokas. Is real estate included as part of the general rule that when you steal something you have to make full restitution or not? Rebbe Elazar holds like Rebbe Eliezer, who says that real estate is no different from anything else, and therefore, if it depreciates in your value as a ganef, you have to make full restitution, and if you swear falsely, not knowing testimony on real estate, you bring a korban shvuah. And Rabbi Yochanan says real estate is special, so he holds like the Chachamim who exclude real estate from the general laws of theft. So Amar Leilo, Man de mechayev ke Rebbe Eliezer, Man de poter, Amar lecha baha, afilu Rebbe Eliezer mona, de Rachmana Amar mikol velo hakol. So the Gemara says no, not necessarily. It could be that in a situation where we're dealing with theft itself, then you have a legitimate machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. But in a case of Shavuos Ha'edus, swearing falsely, there the Torah uses a specific word of mikol, which is coming to exclude. Mikol means from a subset of the entire category, of the entire group. And therefore, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that when he says real estate is not excluded from the general laws of theft, but he would agree that real estate is excluded from the subset of things for which you have to bring a carbon for Shavuos Ha'edus. Now, Amar Rav Papa Mishmei Derava Masnisa Namidika. Our Mishnah actually is supportive of this idea that Shavuos Ha'edus and Shavuos HaPikadon do not apply when the claim is upon real estate. How can I prove it? The katani ganafta eshori v'hu omer lo ganafti, mashbiecha ani v'omer amein chayev, v'ilu ganaftis afti lo katani. My time alav mishum the eved rather iskash lekarkos ve'in mivin karban al kfir shibut karkos. What we're trying to prove is from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that a classic example of being chayiv a korban for taking a false oath on Shavuos HaPikadon is where Ruvain says to Shimon, you have my ox. Shimon denies having the ox, and then Shimon confesses. Shimon has to bring a korban. But notice that the example is only on chattel. It's not on slaves. It's not on real estate. So that indicates that slaves and real estate are excluded because they're not included in the, like Rabbi Yochanan had said, that when you deny a claim on real estate, you don't bring a Shavuos HaPikadon. You don't bring a carbon for Shavuos HaPikadon. So Amar of Papi Mishmei Derava, Ema Seifa, Ze Aklal Kol HaMishalem Al Pi Atzmo Chayev, V'Shein HaMishalem Al Pi Atzmo Potter. But wait a minute. If you're trying to prove the point from our Mishnah, look at the last line of our Mishnah. It said the general rule is that any time you deny a claim voluntarily and you swear falsely without having witnesses testify against you, if you confess, you have to bring a carbon. But if you're forced to pay because of witnesses, then you would not bring a carbon. So why do you have to bring a general rule if your example also indicated the same thing? Ze'aklal la'asuyei mai. My lav la'asuyei ganafta es avdi. Maybe that general statement of Ze'aklal is coming to tell you that it doesn't just apply to chattel, but it applies to slaves and real estate as well. And therefore we conclude that our Mishnah can't prove it either way. It could be that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, that when there's a claim on real estate, there is no carbon Shavuos HaPikadon, but it could be not that way. You can't prove it one way or the other from our Mishnah. We'll hold it here for today.